two sisters, one husband, one child, and a story buried in the shadows of 1839 North Carolina. Close your eyes and picture this. It's 1839. The American South is wrapped in a humid summer haze. North Carolina's countryside stretches endlessly, fields of tobacco swaying under the burning sun, dirt roads winding through quiet towns where everyone knows everyone else's secrets. Life is simple, yet every whisper carries weight, every rumor spreads like wildfire. In this world of rigid traditions and strict morality, scandal was more dangerous than disease. And yet, one household became the center of a story so shocking, so unbelievable, that it was spoken of only in hushed voices for generations. That story began with two sisters. Twin sisters. Identical in face, inseparable in childhood. Their bond was extraordinary, so close that they often finished each other's sentences, shared each other's dreams, and moved as if guided by one soul. From the outside, it seemed beautiful. But in a world where women's lives were carefully measured, where marriage defined status and survival, their closeness would eventually lead them down a path both forbidden and unforgettable. The town called them mirror girls. Some admired their beauty, two striking young women with pale skin, dark hair, and eyes so bright they seemed to pierce the soul. Others whispered that twins were unnatural, that sharing the same face was a trick of the devil himself. But what no one could have imagined was the scandal they were about to ignite. Because these two sisters would share one husband. His name was Thomas Whitfield. A man of respect in the county, a landowner with influence, wealth, and charm. He was strong, tall, with the kind of presence that commanded attention the moment he entered a room. Women admired him, men respected him, and in the world of 1839, that was power enough to shape a family's future. At first, Thomas courted the elder twin. A traditional engagement, a respectable match. But somewhere between stolen glances and whispered conversations, something unusual happened. The younger twin began to feel drawn to him as well. And, stranger still, he was drawn to her too. The story goes that Thomas couldn't decide, because how do you choose between two souls who are reflections of each other? Two faces identical, but with hearts so fiercely bound together. And so, a choice was made, a choice that defied the laws of church and state, of morality and decency. A secret pact formed between the three. The sisters would not be divided. They would share him, his house, his life, and eventually, his children. Imagine the shock if such a secret had spread openly in 1839 North Carolina. Adultery was sin enough. But this? To share one man between two sisters. It was unthinkable. And yet, behind the closed shutters of the Whitfield estate, that's exactly what happened. Neighbors began to whisper when they noticed something strange. Both sisters living under one roof. Both wearing rings. Both acting like wives. Visitors never knew how to address them. Was one Mrs. Whitfield and the other Miss? Or were they both? The scandal grew in silence. The church elders muttered behind closed doors. The townsfolk glanced with suspicion. Some said the family was cursed. Others said the husband had bewitched them. And still others whispered something darker, that the twins themselves had made a pact, an oath stronger than any vow of marriage, and Thomas was merely the vessel through which they kept it. But the greatest twist of all had not yet come. Because soon, both sisters would become pregnant. And though it should have been a blessing, it was the spark that turned this scandal into a tragedy whispered for centuries. One child would not survive. And the one that did? That child would carry the shadow of this scandal for the rest of their life. Before we step into the tragedy of childbirth, before we uncover the bitter jealousy, the accusations, and the haunting legacy left behind, ask yourself this. What would drive two sisters to share one husband? Love? Desperation? Or something far more dangerous? An obsession so powerful it blurred the lines of morality, family, and even life itself. This is not just the story of love. It is the story of betrayal, of survival, of death, and of a child who lived while another never took its first breath. This is the story of the twin sisters of North Carolina, 1839. And it begins, in silence. Love, or obsession. A pact was made, but with it came a curse. The Whitfield estate, with its sprawling fields and towering oaks, became the stage for a love story that was anything but ordinary. To the outside world, Thomas Whitfield was a man who had it all: land, respect, and wealth. But behind the shutters of that stately house, an arrangement unfolded that even today feels like the plot of a forbidden novel. Thomas was the kind of man people followed. His voice carried authority, his stride carried confidence. But in matters of the heart, he was caught in a storm of desire and destiny. He married the elder twin first, as society expected. The ceremony was proper, the church bells rang, and the townsfolk whispered with envy at the grand affair. Yet, hidden beneath the smiles and celebrations was a dangerous secret: the younger twin was already bound to him in ways no vows could describe. At first, it seemed innocent. A lingering glance here. A shared laugh there. But soon, the bond between the three deepened until it could no longer be denied. The sisters were inseparable, always had been. And Thomas, instead of dividing them, became the thread that tied them even tighter. Neighbors began to notice. The elder twin was never alone in her new home. The younger was always present, at the table, in the garden, in the parlor. Their bond was so natural, so fluid, that outsiders couldn't always tell who was the wife and who was the guest. And when whispers of intimacy began to surface, the scandal grew louder. "It isn't right," one church elder muttered. "One man, two sisters. It's a sin against heaven itself." Yet the arrangement persisted. Why? Because the sisters made a pact. They promised each other they would never be separated. Not by distance, not by marriage, not even by love. They would share everything. And in Thomas, they found a way to keep that promise. For Thomas, perhaps it was desire. Perhaps it was greed. Or perhaps it was something more, an inability to break the bond between the two women who so perfectly mirrored each other. Whatever his reasons, he agreed. And thus, the scandalous union continued. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. The elder twin began to feel the strain first. She had the title, the recognition, the place in society as Mrs. Whitfield. Yet, in the privacy of the home, she often felt like she was sharing her very identity. Jealousy is a poison, and it began to seep into her veins. The younger twin, on the other hand, felt emboldened. She had no ring, no title, but she had something just as powerful: the man's heart. Some even claimed he loved her more. That her laugh lingered in his ears longer, her gaze burned brighter in his memory. And then came the turning point. Both sisters, within months of each other, became pregnant. Imagine the scandal if the town discovered not just their shared husband, but their simultaneous pregnancies. The whispers turned to gasps. The church condemned it as a curse. And even those who had kept silent began to question how long such a secret could stay buried. Inside the Whitfield estate, the atmosphere grew heavy. At night, Thomas would walk the halls, his footsteps echoing in the silence, his face etched with worry. How could he protect both women? How could he raise two children born of one forbidden union without tearing the family apart? The sisters, once inseparable, began to drift into rivalry. Each watched the other's swelling belly with quiet envy. Each wondered, whose child would Thomas love more? Which mother would the town secretly pity, or condemn? Superstition crept in. Neighbors whispered that God himself would strike down the family. Two sisters, one husband, such defiance cannot go unpunished. And in 1839, in a deeply religious society, such whispers carried weight heavier than any fact. But behind all the gossip and judgment was something far more dangerous: the cracks forming between the twins themselves. For the first time in their lives, they were not perfectly aligned. They were competitors, even if neither would admit it aloud. The pact they had sworn, the promise to share everything, was being tested in the cruelest way possible. One night, as a storm rolled over North Carolina, lightning flashing through the windows and thunder shaking the estate, the elder twin was heard arguing with Thomas. Her voice carried down the hall, filled with anguish and fear. "She will not take my place," she cried. "She will not take what is mine." It was the first open fracture in their strange union. A crack that would only widen as the births drew near. Because soon, the house would echo with both joy and despair. 2 sisters would go into labor. But only one child would survive. And with that survival would come the darkest chapter of all: which sister would claim the baby? 2 mothers, 1 child, and a choice no family should ever face. The year was drawing to a close. The chill of autumn had settled across the tobacco fields, and whispers of the Whitfield scandal had reached even the farthest corners of the county. But inside the grand, silent house, the whispers were drowned by the sound of heavy footsteps, hushed voices, and the groans of 2 women preparing. The sisters, once inseparable, now lay in separate rooms. Each chamber dimly lit by flickering lanterns, each woman clutching the hand of a midwife as the hours stretched endlessly into the night. Thomas moved between the rooms in torment. With every scream, his face grew paler, his hands trembled more. Servants later recalled that he looked less like a husband awaiting fatherhood, and more like a man walking toward judgment. For he knew, though he would never admit it aloud, that only one outcome could save his household from collapse. The pact was already shattered. The sisters no longer whispered promises of unity. Their bond, once unbreakable, had been poisoned by jealousy and fear. Each believed her child must be the one to live. Each prayed for the other's womb to fall silent. The storm outside mirrored the storm within. Rain lashed against the shutters, thunder rolled across the darkened hills, and lightning lit up the night sky as if heaven itself were watching. Hours passed. And then 2 cries. But only one lasted. The elder twin's baby never drew breath. Stillborn. A tiny body wrapped hastily in cloth, hidden from her trembling eyes. The younger twin's child, weak, fragile, gasping, but alive. The midwives tried to soften the blow, but there are some truths too sharp to dull. The elder sister screamed, a sound that tore through the walls of the estate like a knife. Neighbors later claimed they heard it echo across the fields that night, though no one dared approach. In that moment, grief gave way to something darker. The elder twin refused to accept fate. She clutched at the midwife's arms, demanding to see the child who had lived. Her words, though cracked by sobs, carried fury. "If she and I are one, then that child is mine as well." The younger sister, pale and trembling, pulled the swaddled infant closer. Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it carried the force of steel. "No. He is mine. Mine alone." The pact, once sealed in whispers of unity, lay shattered at their feet. Thomas, broken and weary, tried to calm them. But what words can soothe 2 mothers, one with empty arms, one with arms full yet trembling? He stood between them, not as husband, not as father, but as a man condemned by the very choice he had made years earlier. The days that followed were heavy with tension. The elder twin mourned in silence, her eyes hollow, her steps slow. Servants noticed she lingered by the cradle, staring for hours, her fingers twitching as if longing to reach out. At times, she hummed lullabies into the air, though no child answered. The younger twin grew fiercely protective. She scarcely allowed the infant out of her sight, clutching him even as she slept. The baby's breaths were shallow, his cries faint. The midwives warned that he might not survive the winter. But the mother, his true mother, refused to let him go. Yet the question lingered in the halls, whispered behind closed doors: whose child was he really? In a household where 2 sisters shared one man, where pregnancies began almost together, could anyone be certain? The church elders saw the tragedy as divine punishment. Some said the stillborn child was God's judgment for their sinful arrangement. Others claimed the surviving infant was cursed, destined to carry the weight of his parents' sins. And then the rumors began. One servant swore she saw the elder twin standing over the cradle at night, her hands hovering dangerously above the sleeping child. Another claimed to hear the sound of two women arguing in the dark, their voices rising until one scream cut through the silence. Yet when the doors were opened, only silence remained. The town grew restless. Mothers pulled their children close when passing the Whitfield estate. Farmers muttered that no good could come from a house where such scandal lived. And the sisters? Their once mirrored bond was now a battlefield of glances, silences, and unspoken threats. But through it all, the baby remained. Fragile. Small. Breathing against all odds. And with every shallow breath, the unspoken question grew heavier: would he live long enough to carry the Whitfield name? Or would he join his sibling beneath the cold earth, leaving behind nothing but whispers of a cursed family? The answer would come soon. But when it did, it would not bring peace. Because in 1839 North Carolina, the story of the Whitfield twins was never just about life or death. It was about what happens when love twists into obsession, when unity becomes rivalry, and when fate forces a family to face the unthinkable. Two sisters. One husband. One child who lived. One who never drew breath. And a house where the cries of the dead still seemed to linger in the halls. One child survived. But was it a blessing, or a curse? The truth of the Whitfield twins still lingers in whispers, hidden in shadows, lost in time. What do you believe was this fate, punishment, or something darker? If you want to uncover more stories buried in history's silence, tales of mystery, tragedy, and secrets the world tried to forget, then make sure you subscribe right now. Hit that bell so you never miss the next chapter. Because here, every story has a haunting truth waiting to be told.